And when we finally arrived at what we thought was the best iteration of layup, of features and everything, the feedback was really great again. And I think one of the main things that every CCC rider that has been on it so far says is the efficiency. These are guys who are coming off thousands of kilometers per year on our current TCR and then jumping to this, and they can immediately say, wow, that front end stiffness is very noticeable when I'm sprinting, when I'm climbing, when I'm laying down the watts, especially cornering too. Much more stability on the front due to a very nicely revised fork, head tube area, and shaving that little bit of weight as well. I think it's been a very positive product so far for those guys.
Today, we have something very, very special. Road cyclists who appreciate supreme design and who appreciate supreme engineering will want to listen to and see who we have today from Taiwan, from the headquarters of the Giant Global Group. We have design manager Erik Klemm, and we have lead engineer for the Giant Global Road Group, Sophia Shih. You guys can hear me okay? It's a lot of water between the two of us.
Absolutely, no problem. 6,000 miles, but it's all good.
We're going to talk about the brand new TCR range, brand new platform of historically what has been the most successful bike in the peloton, in the pro peloton. And the bike for 2021 has been completely redesigned and completely re-engineered. And these are the two of the people responsible for that. Erik, let's start with you. As design manager, what is your role there with the Giant Group?
So like you mentioned, I am based here in Taiwan, and I lead the design group for our Cycling Innovation Center. And that comprises of about 7 industrial designers and 7 graphic designers. And from start to finish, we're working on shape development, form, function, looking at bold colors, graphics, everything for a very sophisticated presentation, but also something very functional in the end. So hoping that it can lead riders to victory, but also can be enticing for many consumers to purchase.
Excellent. And this bike is a stunning bike. It is a beautiful bicycle. I have been fortunate enough to, over the years, own 2 or 3 of the various versions of the TCR, including going back to the year 2000. So this one is just really beautiful. Congratulations, Sophia. Sophia Shih, lead engineer. It is a beautiful bike. Lead engineer with the road group for Giant Global. Can you tell me what your role is with this bicycle, particularly with the TCR?
Mm-hmm. I work in the same department as Erik, that's the Cycling Innovation Center, and we engineer in charge of developing the engineer structure, the strength, and also like stiffness and lightweight and aerodynamic, everything related to engineering. That's what we are doing in my team, and also to have this product happen, we need to communicate with category manager and also our racing team to make sure this bike will work for commercial product like general consumers, and also it's really a world-class bike for racing team.
How long were you working on this project, this new TCR? How long have you been working on that?
More than 1 year. But this project starts like 2 years, and I joined this team like in the middle, and then start to manage it and lead all the directions and strategy together into the end.
Sophia, what was the aim with this new 2021 TCR range? Because the previous generation of this bike is great. What was the aim? What did you want to do with this frame?
Our goal is to make it the most efficient bike for every day. And the efficient will include the performance and also the maintenance for everything. So the hardest part is current TCR is too good. So it's hard to beat. it's really hard to beat. So try some of the corrector, we try to make it as good as current TCR, but some of them we still want to be better than that. So that's hardest one. So to have the best performance for everything is our goal. Like keep the stiffness and weight ratio the best as current TCR, but improve the aerodynamic. That's what current TCR doesn't have.
This is a completely new platform, essentially. I mean, it's still a sloping top tube. It still has that same design idea and engineering idea behind it that Mike Burrows had almost 30 years ago, 25 years ago, when he worked with Giant to develop the total compact rotor TCR frame. But this is essentially an entirely new platform, right?
Definitely. And like Sophia said, like the current generation TCR that we've had out for a few years now is so good. So when this project began, we had to just look at small pieces, like what are the small incremental changes that we can make that will truly benefit someone in the end? Because already we had a platform that was very light, a great stiffness to weight ratio. It had many advancements like our ISP, integrated seat posts, and we also had both rim and disc versions already. So there was a lot of small details we had to look at, but when you combine all those together, it really amounts to a great improvement for the everyday race bike, or the most efficient race bike, like Sophia mentioned. So yeah, for design details, for engineering details, there was a ton we had to look at. And you're right, like it still has a sloping top tube. It still has very short chainstays. It still has our Overdrive 2 steer tube, but within those parameters, there was a lot of details that we looked to improve.
Sophia, among those details in re-engineering this frame, there were new composite materials and laser cut composite swatches. Can you talk about some of those new technologies that went into it? In order to achieve our goal, like have the best aerodynamic and also lightweight and stiffness, in the very beginning, we find it's really hard to compare to current TCR to balance everything. So we try to find the upgraded composite. At that time, they are still under research. Then we made the bold decision, let's try it on TCR. So we have the updated composite to use on TCR to achieve our lightweight goal and also maintain the stiffness. And the shape can be the best for this kind of model, the aerodynamic. Yeah.
I think on that note too, like besides the new material, a lot of the manufacturing process is more precise, especially with the advanced SL. So for all those laser cut pieces that are overlaid, there's greater precision that Sophia worked on with our carbon engineers to make sure that there's less overlap. Maybe before there was just a few millimeters extra or something of an overlap. And now they were using more better shape tolerances and everything for a lot of those pieces that wrap around the head tube, wrap around the bottom bracket. So in essence, you're using less material, so you're saving weight, but you're also increasing strength by choosing that right shape and the correct layup to go forward with.
And this stiffness to weight ratio results in a better ride quality, some really explosive acceleration, and improved climbing efficiency. I mean, everything that you were working to do, Sophia, you accomplished there, because this is still in tests. It's got a lighter, a better stiffness to weight ratio than the Specialized S-Works Tarmac, the Trekimonda SLR disc, and the Cervelo R5 disc. I mean, that is some stiff competition. And to make a better TCR, stiffer than we had before, and it's lighter, right? It's a lighter weight frame.
Yeah. The one point is we use updated composites, and the second one, just like Erik said, we make the engineer structure a little bit different for the manufacturing, like reduce the overlay for the tube combined, then we can reduce the weight. And I think the shape itself, engineer cooperate with designer together, will create really the best ratio
you have a frame behind you. That's a frame from the new TCR. So go ahead and pick that up, and let's just admire that frame. Is that a proto frame or is that a production frame, Erik?
This is one of the prototype frames. I mean, I think shaping-wise and everything, not too much change between production. This is a rim brake one, so our main focus for this project was disc brake,
Right.
but we do offer rim brake version as well, since we know some riders still enjoy that. But yeah, at first glance, I will say that to the untrained eye, it might look very similar to our current TCR, but when any retailer gets closer, any user, you'll see that it is dramatically different. The silhouette is very similar, but a lot of those sections, like Sophia mentioned, the pieces that were developed between the designer and the engineer, a lot of that is all new. And we can talk through some of it if you want, or.
Yes, please do. Go ahead. I want to talk a little bit while you're discussing this between the two of you about the aerodynamics of this bike, because the TCR has always been known as a great climbing bike, but this is now more aerodynamic than the TCR has ever been.
Correct. I think some of it started where, like you mentioned, the TCR has always been great climbing, great efficiency, but on a lot of third-party tests, we noticed that it was failing a lot of to break into the top 10 of a lot of choices. So when magazines or websites would do a lot of aerodynamic tests, the TCR was not anywhere near the top. So, and a lot of that was due to the box section down tube that we had before, which for efficiency, great. For aerodynamics, not so good. The new down tube is dramatically different. Again, from a side view, you might not see that, but if you were to wrap your hands around it and look at the proportions of it, especially in relation to a water bottle, it's very wide. And I think traditional wisdom would say, oh, it's wider, it's going to be less aerodynamic. But because of the sculpting, because of the sections, and because now it can promote more clean air around the water bottle when air flows around it, we were able to save a few watts, just a few watts, but that's still improvement on the down tube area. So I think it is very wide and it's very dramatic looking now, but it's one thing that we look to improve, especially just trying to tackle some aerodynamics for this project.
Is the head tube different than before, the head tube itself?
The head tube is different as well, and I think one of the most visible things, I don't know if people can see, but there is a large flat section, more of a truncated shape behind the head tube. So through our CFD analysis, we ran several different tests, from the baseline current TCR to comparing it to our Propel and other bikes. But making this section flat, it also allowed a much more cleaner air to flow around behind the head tube, which, again, small incremental changes, only so much we could do on TCR when we're still considering stiffness to weight ratio. But this flatter section, especially in the larger sizes when this grows, is one of the key visual differences between the current and the new TCR.
Yeah. Because if you cut the head tube shape, you will see the profile. It looks like a contail. It's kind of aerodynamic shape. People are talking about. So we don't see that in the bike, but we really cut every pieces to see the profile. It works for aerodynamic or not. So outlook-wise, it's good, it's straight, it's strong for aerodynamic, and function-wise, it really is. Yeah.
And you took this bike to the wind tunnel, right?
Yes.
Right.
Talking about wind tunnel, the main difference between some magazines or people that test is Giant. We have a dummy, which is the leg is moving. We have a rounding legs with total assembled bike. It's not just part of a bike. Yeah, we make it a full bike in the wind tunnel, and also a full man, a full man with the body, and also the leg is rounding. And we built this equipment 6 years ago or 7 years ago. For us, for our research, we try to achieve the real world situation, and then the product will be the result we want for you. Yeah.
The fact that we do use a pedaling dummy with a full kit eliminates that extra variable of a human on there trying to hold position. And of course, if they move slightly or their head ducks or something, that could simulate a change that is not wanted. So yeah, I think we try to keep the testing as consistent as possible. And like you said, it's a similar dummy that we've used on Propel, some other bikes as well, and our NV Live. And that's been a good driving factor for development, because we can keep things consistent for our own testing and also comparing it to other competitor models.
We see the air, the dirty air will around the pedaling area. So that's really very important. So even though we know it's not easy to build, but we still want to have it, because we see that the pedaling legs will create a lot of turbulence. So to see the real situation will help us to build the real aerodynamic shape for bikes.
And when you refer to dirty air versus clean air, dirty air is air that is going to slow a rider down. Clean air means aerodynamic. It's passing past the frame quickly, right?
Yeah, like clean air will be a smooth one, and dirty air will create turbulence behind the tube shape, and it will influence your like they will eat your power. Like you need to put out more power to conquer that. So that's how aerodynamic works. So to make it easy, we tell it's clean air and dirty air, but actually we are talking about the drag and also the turbulence behind everything. Yeah.
And aerodynamics is funny. It's a very interesting science, and sometimes what you feel should be aero is actually not after testing. And like Sophia mentioned about the pedaling and a lot of the turbulence that's created around the crank area and everything. When we cut through these sections here, if you cut horizontally through each of these, sometimes if the fork section was different, that might affect the way the down tube collects that air after it flows through the fork. So it's almost a procession of sections that we have to look at as the airflow goes through the bike. So again, sometimes creating a true aero section for every tube maybe isn't the best solution. You have to look at how that airflow goes, and obviously at different yaw angles as well. Maybe not just from a zero, but for this, we tried to look at many different angles. So in any condition, the rider can save some power and be faster.
Because the rider is not always going in a straight line directly into the headwind. The rider turns, the wind shifts, it hits from the side, it hits at different angles, yaw angles to the bike.
Exactly.
We'll talk a little bit too about the braking. You have the rim brake version there, but for the disc brake version of this bike, we learned some things from the Propel to help aerodynamics in the fork. Can you talk a little bit about that, Erik?
Yeah, I think the main goal with our fork on the disc brake was actually to increase tire clearance. So that was goal number one. So most riders we know are going to a larger tire volume and conquering maybe not just your normal tarmac road with this, but they might go on some dirt as well. That's not the goal for TCR, but we know it might happen and the requirement is there. So I think from engineering team, one of the goals was to allow the fork to accept a little bit larger tire. In the process of that, the legs of the fork did widen a little bit. And like Sophia mentioned just before, like it did result in some cleaner air. So if the fork is a little bit bowed away from the rim itself, it allowed a larger opening for airflow to go through. So in the past, where the legs were a little bit closer to the rim, there could be a little bit of turbulent area happening when the air can't flow so cleanly between the rim and the fork. But on this new one, again, it's only by a few millimeters, but I think that also resulted in great tire clearance first. And secondly, the fork did become a little bit more aero, not only from the that little bit more clearance between the rim, but also from the section itself, a bit more of a truncated form, which we found helped, especially when the airflow went through the fork to the down tube area.
And the front brake mount on the fork, the disc brake mount, is integrated better to allow for better aerodynamics. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, the disc brake can have good aerodynamic results. We learned that from Propel. And like I will say, actually, we have a lot of good luck. like we we see the disc brake, the advantage of disc brake, including the potential for aerodynamic, and also we can make the tire clearance bigger, and also they will have better control for braking. So we make the decision, yes, we will have disc brake version. And during the developing period, we even found that a good shape connected to this disc brake design can help more for aerodynamic too. So I said, we have a lot of good loss. So as a result, the disc brake on TCR, it worked very well for aerodynamic. Yeah.
The TCR has always had, since its inception in the late 90s, the TCR has always had the help of the pros. We've always had a pro team, beginning with Team Once in Spain in the mid and late 90s, all the way to now. The CCC team was instrumental in helping develop this. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I think along the way, riders like Greg Van Avermaet would allow quite a bit of free feedback to us under several different versions of different prototypes. And when we finally arrived at what we thought was the best iteration of layup, of features and everything, the feedback was really great again. And I think one of the main things that every CCC rider that has been on it so far says is the efficiency. And I realize, maybe a pro rider can feel this, maybe the average consumer cannot, but these are guys who are coming off thousands of kilometers per year on our current TCR and then jumping to this, and they can immediately say, wow, that front end stiffness is very noticeable when I'm sprinting, when I'm climbing, when I'm laying down the watts, especially cornering too. Much more stability on the front due to a very nicely revised fork, head tube area, and shaving that little bit of weight as well. I think it's been a very positive product so far for those guys.
When we have the first batch for TCR prototypes, we send it to CCC team to try, and the feedback is so funny. They say they didn't expect that they can be better than current TCR. So we are so happy. Yeah, we do that, and actually we discuss with our racing team what will be their goal to have the new TCR, and we try to make it, and we really make it. Yeah.
And that was what I was going to ask. It's a good point. You've been sending prototypes to the CCC team for a while. This is not something that just has been happening in the last 6 months.
One of the final races of the year in Canada, Greg did win one stage of it, or I forget if it was a one-day race, but he did win it on the new TCR, and this was several months ago, already winning on it. I think because it was painted like his current TCR Olympic bike, and maybe the photos did not show, the true details of the bike. So maybe the average person didn't pick up on it. But there were several comments on Instagram that people were curious, like, something's different about this bike. But it's pretty funny that it already has a World Tour victory under its belt. But because it was still sort of in a prototype, early production stage, we kind of kept it quiet.
Yeah,
but it was
tested secretly.
Yeah.
So Sophia, that win had to be very exciting for you. You had to feel great about that when he wins.
Yeah, I keep looking at all the photos he is riding.
So we just had to make sure, is that really the new one? Yeah.
And he had a good result for his stages, and also the feedback behind the scene he gave to us is really good. Yeah, and he can feel like, especially the steering and cornering, he feel the stiffness for the fork is better than current TCR. So the handling quality for him is better. Yeah.
And one note too, since disc brake has taken over the pro peloton, a full build of disc, especially with tubulars and everything that pros are using with our TCR Advanced SL, even for medium frame, it comes in right at the weight limit, possibly even under. I think a lot of, if I can trust some weight analysis of a lot of websites that do profiles on pro bikes, a lot of the bikes, even if they're not an aero bike, is quite a bit over even 7 kilos. So I think that's testament to the engineering job that everyone's done, especially using our Arcadix wheels and the new cockpit that we have for TCR. A full disc brake equipped bike with pedals, even computer mount, I think is right at the weight limit for UCI, which is incredible considering I don't think a lot of other brands can do that.
We had some concerns because the total bike for commercial spec is too light and under UCI rules. It concerns
So if you
me.
want to race it, maybe you have
so
to
our
ask them.
racing team, they need to put more weight on the bikes to achieve the rule 6.8 kilograms only allowed for UCI racing. Yeah, so that's the only thing concerns me. That's too light. But for general consumers, you don't really need to go to UCI racing. That you can enjoy the lightweight feature. Yeah.
It's a good dilemma to have for most pros, I think. The bike is very, very light, very stiff. So either the rider adds another 5 pounds to his body or he puts some weight on the bike. Is that what has to be done?
Yes, for racing team, they need to put some weight inside frame or they change some component to heavier one to achieve the weight goal. Yeah, make it heavier.
Erik, have you ridden it? I know you're a roadie, Erik. I know you ride. Have you ridden it?
Yeah, it's funny. I am a roadie. I've owned several. I think I've owned at least 7 or 8 advanced SL ISPs over the years, and I have our current one now. I have not, and the only reason I say that is because I ride a large size, and just due to the pre-production molds of those, most of our large sizes immediately went to our CCC team for some of the taller riders. So I've got my name in the queue, but I have not ridden it yet.
The funny thing is you will get the larger size earlier than Erik.
Yeah.
because our boss say we need to sell first, so Erik can wait a little bit, please. Because our manufacturer is running everything for that, and to create the larger size for our consumers. Not Erik.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I gotta wait. But
I think overall maybe road sales, sometimes we look at the numbers and they're maybe not what they used to be. And a product like this, which is a very expensive road bike, it's a few grand to buy it. But there was such an overwhelming demand for this TCR from our sales companies around the world that we were actually surprised at the forecasting numbers that each company was putting up. So it tells us that the improvements that were made were legit, they're worth it. And the fact that they feel like this is a worthy successor to the current one, that to Sophia's point, like the factory is working overtime to make as many as they can for the sales companies. Now, the current situation that happened within the last month might slow things down a little bit, but she's right. I can't get one because they're going to consumers first.
Our boss asked that, sorry, Erik, can you wait a little bit because we need to cater our consumers first.
Yeah.
Exactly. The consumers come first. Our customers do come first. Sophia, have you had a chance to ride this? You would ride a smaller frame size, so maybe
not yet too. I need to wait.
She's gotta wait too.
Yeah, we have the priority like our racing team to try first. Yeah, sure. So with limited resource and timing, we try to make some strategies. So we have our pro team to test and also some pivotal racers and test riders to test first. Yeah, so extreme sizes, not extreme, like bigger or smaller sizes, we will get that later. Yeah.
I want to thank you both. I know it's the start of your workday where you are. It's the end of our workday here, but it's the start of your day there in Taiwan. So thank you for taking now. It's over a half an hour, and that's a little longer than I intended, but this is fascinating stuff. And I think our consumers will appreciate sort of getting this behind the scenes. Erik, can you hold that frame up one more time? Just so we can take a look.
We do have, so this is the rim brake. Again, I'm not sure how close you can see it, but a little bit of obviously head tube change, the down tube itself. If I just put my hand up to it and everything, you can see that it is quite a bit different.
Yes.
One thing we can point out too we have a very sort of prototype-ish advanced SL frame here. So just for all the nerds out there that wanted to know all the details and everything, there's a lot of small changes. The advanced SL ISP is a little bit different shape, also saving a hair of wattage, but it's something that we had to look at. There is a new ISP clamp for the top as well. And for all the weight weenie nerds out there, this is huge because you save 8 to 10 grams off that clamp. For me, that's awesome because I always thought the heaviest part that I put on the bike was the ISP clamp in the past. Yes. But Sophia helped to make a carbon, sort of a carbon plate that clamps the rails on top, and that was saving quite a bit of weight for the old one. And one more very cool detail about the new TCR is there is a whole new cockpit. And if I can, okay. One thing we wanted to look at was, we had a much older stem. We had a contact SLR stem, carbon stem that I'm sure many retailers and consumers are familiar with. This is quite a long one of the new one, but very flat back. It integrates extremely well visually with the head tube area. We have new spacers as well, which would very cleanly integrate everything together. Sophia mentioned something in the beginning about maintenance for this product. A lot of bike manufacturers are going with full internal cable routing and routing it in for the steer tube or through the steer tube. And that was something we looked at, but we felt that for consumers, for shops, we've heard too many nightmare stories about assembly and maintenance. And for TCR, since we were really striving for a lightweight, stiff package, we still kept the cables external, the housings external, but the overall aesthetic of this new cockpit integrating with the head tube, we feel is extremely clean. A huge improvement over the current one. So if there's a side-by-side imagery that consumers are looking at or retailers, you'll see a very noticeable update to the visual of that. And one more detail also about the cockpit, there is an all-new contact SLR handlebar. The old one we had was very light, very stiff, but I think ergonomically, especially if you had your hands on top of the bars, which a lot of riders have, especially while climbing, the extremely round, flat back profile to that was not so comfortable to any hand, mine included. I mean, I think it was not great. But this new one, the section here where your hands would be on the tops is a little bit flattened out, a little bit more elongated grip. And through all our tests, including our last generation one-piece SLR handlebar, we found that this was much more comfortable, especially for longer rides, especially for the type of riding that this bike is doing. So that was another update too. Very lightweight handlebar still, I think just as light as before. Maybe a gram or two difference.
I really forget.
Okay, yeah. But we're not sacrificing any weight there, but the consumer, the rider, is gaining
a bit of comfort on top, which we feel is only going to add to that whole efficiency message we're trying to do.
And Erik, the bike is beautiful. I mean, design-wise, the bike is just beautiful. And I think that also speaks to the design language that the Giant Group is using now.
For sure. A few months ago, we did launch our new design language called Tensio. We've been able to apply it to many of our new products. And it's really it's a form language, but it's also a messaging of what our bikes can be. It's a sensation of freedom, of forward movement, and a lot of those lines that we have, TCR is maybe not the prime example of that, but a lot of our bikes have this forward flowing movement, which we felt is important to make something beautiful, make something functional, but also carry on a message of what Giant is all about and inspiring that sensation of adventure and freedom. So TCR really was, it does embody all that, but it's also an exercise in design restraint. Because of the parameters, the weight targets, the aerodynamics, it was actually an interesting and exhausting effort, I would say, for design and engineering to come together and make something that is beautiful. It embodies all those elements that we were going for, and in the end, everything can come together and work properly. So, it's not excessive styling, but I think the forms are strong. They're very organic. They're very powerful. All things that relate to the theme of what TCR is about. And as far as the color, the graphics, which consumers will eventually see, that too, we feel that less is more. So we've really invested a lot of time. We have a great graphics team that is always investigating new paint colors, what the trends are. So we've looked at new paints that create a ton of depth, decals which really stand out a bit more. And I think more than ever, this TCR looks its part. It looks mature. It looks fast. So a lot of these colors that consumers have a choice of, they're commercially available. It's not a separate custom program or anything. Just straight up out of the catalog. There's some great stuff.
You have people coming in the room. I don't want to keep you. I know, again, you're starting your work day. Sophia, congratulations again. And congratulations to you too, Erik. What a terrific product. When we go back and we look at Mike Burrows, so many years ago, more than 2 decades ago, and his idea of a smaller, lighter, stiffer, faster frame, we have Giant, have continually expanded on that, and that's just terrific that we have such a history with that bike.
His vision started it all, and to this day, it still inspires us. So it's still something that we look to improve every time we tackle this project. But yeah, he started a whole revolution of road bikes, and thankfully he was on our team, and that set everything in motion.
Sophia, what else are you working on now?
New road bikes. I will tell you. Other new road bikes, you can look forward to that.
Okay, that's enough said. I know there's a
now road bike team. We in charge of Giant brand and diff brand. So for women, for men, we will try to make the best bike for you all.
And I think we can leave it at that. I know there are some confidentiality and some proprietary things that we can't talk about. Thank you both. Thank you both for taking the time this morning to tell us what is a terrific bike this is. Thanks, guys.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank
you too.
you.
Bye-bye.